I have wanted to paint this tram for such a long time, and I sketched it out such a long time ago. And today, right now, I'm going to paint it. So I will give you the template since I've already sketched it out. So we will just go ahead and paint it. I'm going to do a different technique today. I am going to use pen. So um, I have my Micron 0.1 and I have my Sharpie pen, and I'm going to use both of them. One is they're kind of the same, more or less, but they have different feels. So I'm going to start with my Sharpie pen, and instead of just trying to paint, I'm first going to do a few sketchy outlines using the pen. So I and I'm going to use like a continuous sort of line, but not super straight or heavy. But it's going to be definitely up to you how you want to do it. I'm going to do a little scribble for some of the details I see here. And I'm just going to do a few light kind of lines. Uneven is always better. I mean, we can also paint this with our paintbrushes, but this could be quite fun. So now, because I've done it such a long time ago, I kind of have to remember how it works. Mess it up a little bit, maybe. So I love to have it on my phone or iPad when I sketch, even if I do plein air or outside sketching. I always like to just take a photo of on my phone too. There's a couple of things that sometimes happen, like the light change, the sunlight moves, depending on how fast you are. So I always take a photo with my phone too, and then I like to use the reference. So again, no heavy lines. Broken lines are better. And sometimes me, especially, I love to draw what I see. So I'm really trying to make it even a little bit less detail. Like some of your arches, there's like a few details here. Smaller arch, even a smaller arch. And I just keep on going. And I'm not trying to be so straight. I'm not trying to make it very perfect. And I'm kind of gonna end it a bit uneven-ish. Now it's in detail there, then we can just paint in. Sometimes details are extremely fun and great, and then sometimes it's just a lot. So try to do a little less. And sometimes I love to do this double line. This is the big side mirror. There's like, ooh, I'm so sorry. I was looking so much at the details, I didn't even see I was off the page. But I just keep on outlining it. I think the tracing and this step is probably the step that will take the longest. Painting is pretty fast. Yeah, straight down. Forward. So no real instruction here. All you want to do is kind of just want to follow the pencil lines. And then sometimes your lines does not make sense. Luckily, we decide less detail, right? We decided that. Okay, so I'm looking at the reference photo pretty much the whole time, just so it sort of kind of makes sense what I'm doing. Another thing what happens is when you sketch and you kind of smoosh with your hand, sometimes your lines disappear a little bit. I may have that situation now happening. I think I'm gonna leave the detail like this. I think I've said it there, but there's like bottles of alcohol, I want to say. I think it's alcohol that they like beer or something that I'm just gonna leave that out. And I'm just gonna pretend right like that. It's gonna be great. And I'm just adding some bottom. What am I even doing? You know, adding little lines. I think my Sharpie is almost done. Maybe time for some new ones. Okay, front of the tram. And then I want to show the grid. So I'm going to do a few lines. I'm adding that black. But then I'm going to do here, I'm going to do a little line. It's going to be the same height. And right here, it's going to be the same height. I'm going to do some numbers here. Mm, sidewalk. This is the shadow of the tram. I think I'm going to do a few shadowy lines. Okay. So again, not real instructions, not a lot there. Oh man, I even did the guy. Look at that. I'm just sketching him out a little bit like this. His head got a little bulky, but again, I think it's fine. Mm, mm, Couple of lines here. Super sketchy. Don't have to, you will drive yourself mad, I think, if you count everything. I love to count and make sure everything lines up and everything is perfect. But I think with this type of sketch, it's different. I don't think you really have to go in so much detail. The pen is doing all the work for you, so the pen will make sure that it looks like a picture. So you don't have, you're gonna worry less about, getting the shadows, getting the lines, because the strong pen outlines is already there for you. So that makes it easy. And forget that I need to keep an eye on what you are seeing, so I cannot go off the page. Mm. Do this. Oh, I bet those lines went a little too high. Or too, yeah, but I don't even know if you will definitely notice it. Spotlight. I think it's spotlight. Could be something else. So you can definitely sketch this one out using the grid format, like I showed previously. Um, it does make it easier, or you can just trace. I mean, sometimes there's this discussions of, do you need to know how to draw? And my honest answer is, you don't need to. If you don't want to, you don't have to. People can get hung up about they need to learn how to draw. And I'm like, well, everybody's giving an outline, so I guess you don't. Okay. Now there's a little piece of roof. There. And then, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit just so you can see the whole thing. Okay, so when you have most, I need to do this. when you have most of your lines. Where does this line go? It's here. With little things. When you have most of your outline done, there's a couple of lines here that I'm missing. Okay, wait, before I tell you the next step, let me just do them. And make a little thingy at the end. It's there. Let's put little thingies. And then those two come down. And that one. And there's little thingies. And there's one bigger little thingy. Okay, so I know I'm like losing my, but here's what I want to show. I'm just going to use this little paint strip. What if you want to figure out, so this is, I think I went through that when we did the grid drawing, but this is why the grid drawing can be so helpful. So what if you want to do some of your bricks? So the bricks that, the bricks that go right here. So I placed my ruler or whatever I kind of want to put straight, and I can see it come down with an angle and then it come down a little bit with an angle. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's not a great quality. It goes down a little bit, but that just shows you that your bricks are not straight. So I'm going to angle a little bit down and maybe not even do as many as I have. Just angle a little bit down. You see that? The angle is just a little bit more down. And then you want to connect it and you want to go a little down to the other side, but also you don't even have to do, you can just kind of half your line, like little bit, like a tiny bit of detail. I am going to do, I didn't add it, but I'm going to add it because it is right here and we did the one side and then we have to do the other side. So I'm adding some bricks or some, you know, here. And again, it's kind of pointy like a triangle, pointing to this one. So it kind of matches the angle. And sometimes when you do a few little, oh, it's actually touching. Where is it? Who even knows? If you do a few detail lines like that, it just gives, well, me, I just like detail. So for me, it just makes it feel more cooler when there's just more things to look at, basically. And then use these guidelines to help you with your angles. So make sure, so that can quickly make your painting look a little off if there's a line that's kind of a little too wonky. So now I'm just going to repeat going down and see how I kind of sketch it. So I'm not really worried about making it so full, so straight, so perfect. Like it's that weird, it's like I like perfect, I like detail, but then I'm like, but don't be perfect and don't give too much detail. So good luck with that. Just, you know, this is what it is. There's a little brick over here I'm not gonna do. Just because that would be too much. I'm just kidding. And now that I have everything in, I'm gonna erase it. Some people leave the pencil lines. You certainly can leave your pencil lines. I like to erase it just because sometimes the pencil lines smudge a little bit. I like to use my soft eraser that I can kind of manipulate like how I want it, or you want to use a white eraser. So feel which one, but try not to erase too much because you will break your paper. And then it will just not act the way you want it to act. Definitely make sure I erase that photo. So your template obviously will not have the bottle on. I'm bummed that I did these little lines over here, but nobody will see them, I guess. So many lines already. And what I want to do now is I can stay with my Sharpie pen, or I can go to a thicker pen. Let me quickly see if I have a thicker one in my 0.1. I think I do. Let me just look in my little pouch. Because now you can come back and you can do a few heavier lines. This is a 1.5. And I'm also not very brand specific on pens. The only thing that you need to do is make sure that your pens are permanent. If it's going to be water soluble, it's going to react with your water. And then if you have a pen like that, what you need to do is do the pen then in the end where you already done painting. I don't know if this is a little too thick. I also like the thinner lines. Yeah, let's see. Let's check this one against my Sharpie. Okay. I'm not going to do the 1.5. I'm going to do the fine point, which is slightly, maybe slightly thicker, maybe. You don't even need to switch. I'm going to switch a little bit. I'm going to just make some of the lines a little bit heavier. I'm going to maybe color in some of my windows by just making lines like this. Oh, this pen is not so, it's not so cool anymore. And then what you want to do is you want to make sure that your angles stay the same. So if you start by doing diagonal lines going down, make sure you stay. And then just do a few, not a lot. You don't have to go everywhere. We are going to use paint, but sometimes doing shadowy ideas just helps. I move down here, I scribble in a little bit here, I scribble a little bit more here. I'm doing, I know I jump around a lot, but it's like I look up, I see this, I look up, I see this. And definitely not perfect. Even if you double your lines, I will take a photo of this stage before I add the paint. So I can show you guys so you can see the pen. I definitely want to make my poles a little stronger. And I'm going to do the same crosshatch. Again, use the same angle. So whenever you want to color something in or make it a bit stronger, same angle. So you can decide, you can go straight down. I like to always do, well, this is an easy way for my hand, but I am right-handed, so it makes sense for me. You may have a different angle. Some windows are not super dark. Some more. Especially the windows. We wanna I'm gonna give wait, switching to my small Sharpie line just so I can do a few more details here. I'm gonna do an outline that will stay white only on the right hand side. And I'm gonna do a little outline in here. And then I'm gonna color it in a bit. Same angle. But it's very loosey goosey. Yes, Sharpie is definitely dead. And at one point, I think it even kind of looks cool, just like this. So at the bottom, I want to make it a little darker, like a little bit. I'm going to make some bricks here. I'm just going to make some lines going straight up. And I'm going to do a few windows here. Again, the same angle. And basically, I did the windows. Do you guys see that? I basically did the windows and I did some of the balls, but that is it. I didn't do too much. I didn't want to get stuck with too much paint details. So this is what I have. So I'm going to take a photo for us at this stage. And then we are going to start painting. So put all your pens away. Put all your pens, but some of your pens. I like to do a few brushes, so I think I want to even go a bit bigger. So about the size of your full pinky nail, maybe even close to your thumb, your pointer, your index. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit just so you can see it. This and this. Water. And I like to always start with the background first. So if I do a background, I like to do it first. You mix whatever blues you want. Me, I like the moody sky. So I'm going to go blue. I'm going to add a little bit of a purple. And I'm still going to go light. I make sure I touch my pencil, or now it's a pen line. And I kind of move it around. Sometimes painting side to side can be helpful. Sometimes you just want to move it around. I'm going to make sure that here, I'm going to put some greenery in here. So I want to make sure it's really light. So I'm just kind of soften it out a little bit. I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna drop in water more. And go over your painting, your folding. And I want to go fast so that it does not dry. Don't go over your foldings, but you could because nobody will know. Actually. And even if you paint up and down, scrabble, kind of, to me, I like the uneven finish. So I don't even want to try to make it so super smooth. Maybe add some. I like it. Softer, better. Always better. I say this and then I come back and I do more. And my paper is wet. Like if I can lift up to show you. Ooh, it's a bit shiny. I'm not really show you because everything on my book is gonna fall. Okay, so that is sky. You can decide to stay with your big brush or you can switch to a smaller one. I am going to do so now I don't want to paint where it could be wet. So I'm going to start painting here. You can just use brown if you want to, or you can mix blue, like a darker blue, and you can mix some orange, or you can use purple and yellow, and that makes a very pretty brown too. So decide what kind of brown you want to go for and play around. Always have like a little strip so you can kind of try your color. I like the purpley orangey one. I also like to use brown with my purple. It gets purple, blue, orange. I also like to use brown and add purple. So play around and see which one you like because, experiment is the best thing. Before I start painting, I'm dipping into my paintbrush, my water cup, and the bigger brush is going to help you to not paint too precise. I drop in some paint spray. I clean my brush. I suck it up a little bit and move it. So the water will flow. Come back, add a little, drop it a little bit in. This is a wet on wet, but I'm not making my paper wet. I am just using a lot of water. So it's kind of wet and then I drop in color and then I'm going to wait before I paint here because you will see how it kind of seeps in. Sometimes you want it, sometimes you don't. Adding a tiny bit more orangey can change the color to make it a bit lighter. I think you can just paint over this. Yeah, let's just paint over it. And then you can come back. Add a little paint spray. I don't like to use black. Black just makes it a bit dull, but paint gray is so pretty. So just come back and add a little paint gray. Do a bit here while it's still wet and you will see it will flow. To make your person stand out, you can also drop in a little bit behind, like around him, and it will kind of flow. See how it coming to this side because it was wet. And then use the same color, repeating it here, those little bricks. Maybe get a bit of a paint spray, drop it in at the bottoms. So kind of blend in. So we don't have to stay with the colors, right? We can kind of make up our own ones. So before I paint the boarding here, I'm going to let this dry. So I'm going to, well, you want to make sure it's dry. So you can touch it. You can look to see if it's shiny. It looks good. I think I can paint it. I am doing the same orangey blue. Maybe let's check. Oh, very pretty. It's kind of the same. Drop in some water, let it flow. Let it fade. Drop in the paint spray a little bit more. So by letting it kind of dry uneven, it will dry differently. Look at all the gorgeousness that's happening over here. That's kind of what we want. Okay. Let's add some. I'm going to add some blue to that color combo to get a very soft, warm, kind of interesting gray. I'm going to dip into my watercolor before I start painting. And I am making, there's like a shadow. I don't know if you guys can see, there's like a shadow. So I'm going to paint here with that soft color. And my brush is really wet. I'm actually going to go over the window. Yeah, let's go over it. And it goes a little below. To make a nice line. Make a little shadow. This over this window is also part of the shadow. Touching the little roof. This, oh, there's a line missing. There's a shadow too. And you can either let it in like this, or you clean your brush, you just suck it up and you just kind of come back and push it in a little bit. So it just dries a bit uneven. I'm gonna do over this line. I'm gonna go to the top. And I'm gonna just kind of let it fade like this. I can even clean my brush, suck it up and like let it blend out. I am doing this gray pillar. And I need to make it a bit darker. I'm going to make this pillar a little bit darker. So to get it darker, you need some of your blue and your orange again. And so mix it again just so it's a bit darker. Ooh, that's a very pretty blue. This like a dark blue is like one of my favorite blues. Oops, brush is a bit big. It's okay. In here. Add a little bit of water to your brush. Paint that side. It's going to be wet, so it may flow. Clean your brush or add water and just kind of give it a little smoosh over this. And here, a little smoosh over. And we did this one. I'm going to make it a bit darker. So even if you paint exactly the same color on top, it's going to look different. So even if it's exactly the same color, I'm gonna do a side to side like this. And I'm gonna drop in some color. So you can go a little bit more since it's wet, and if you want to drop in some oranges or some blues and kind of let it flow, definitely can. Sometimes I like to just have a base color because it helps me. So it's not so white. But for sure, you can definitely come back. And I prefer this bigger brush, so I cannot do so much detail. So even if I go like this and I blend it, see how I can add like to my bricks. Okay. And you can do it here and there, or here and there and everywhere. Mixing, so mix whatever color you like. That's kind of the thing. I always like to experiment with a lot of color. I like to mix, I like to play. You can stay in your lines, or like I just did over here, you can mix up your lines. You can kind of pull it down. Let it kind of settle here at the bottom. Even drop in. I am going to do the same kind of orangey blue effect. And I'm dropping in water so it blends more. And I'm dropping in some blues here and there. Blend it a bit in. I try to stay in my lines somewhat. I don't want to really go too much out of my lines. I try to also, uh, make it a little darker. I try to play with the values and the shading. I'm just going to do a little swishy like that. Clean, touch it up, let's clean it out a bit. Make it oranges. Sometimes I add too much. And sometimes you just have to get rid of the color and come back again. So clean your brush. With the big brush, I definitely want to say you have to touch your towel a few times to just make sure you don't have too much. Water. But the bigger brush definitely helps you to paint less precise, which is exactly what you want. And then let's paint let's go here. So it's a little bit lighter. So I'm just going to start from the bottom. Same kind of grayish color. And I'm just going to give a little wash up. I'm not going to paint all the way to the top. So touch a little bit, even if you go back and touch it, so it can kind of flow in somewhat more. And then don't paint all the way to the top. And then we have to wait for it to dry. So then I'm going to do the paving that is on, or the whatever you want to call it. I'm going to do paint gray. I'm going to make it somewhat darker. I'm going to paint the little sidewalk thing. I'm going to paint all the way at the bottom. I'm going to paint all the way, all the way, all the way. But don't paint all the way here. Just paint here. And then here. Mm. Let it spread out here to the bottom and to the side. And now you know that letting it dry, it will be much easier to come back into a second layer. So let it just dry. Just gonna push a little bit here and see if I can kind of change it a bit. Now you can stay with this brush, or you can switch a small brush. I'm going to switch to one size kind of smaller. So if this was the one I'm using, or a few sizes smaller, I'm going to use a few sizes smaller. The nice thing about this brush is the nice point. Do you see the nice point? This one have a so-so point, not so great, but it's a little smaller. So I'm going to use this one. And I'm going to get into my orange, and I'm going to add a little bit of pink to my orange to get it, and then a little bit of blue. You can even do some purple. You kind of want to have a rusty terracotta kind of. Color. And then, wait, maybe not so much. Well, this is what blue does to your color, so it's great. I like to touch it right there so it kind of flows in. And then touch my cup. So my color is super light, maybe a little bit more. And this is going to be kind of my white of my bus. So it's a beige. It's not really white. It's like a beige. And then slightly more yellow. Or maybe you want to do a different color. Mix it with that brown color so your yellow is not very bright. It's more like a subtle. What am I looking at? Yellow. You can somewhat stay in your lines. So because we did all the pen work, we don't really need to come back and make sure that we paint the shadows and leave the highlights. We kind of just want to get it down. We don't have to worry about all that little details, which is really nice. And one of the advantages of painting like this is you don't have to do that. I also like to make sure that I can see all these watermarks. So I would get some paint and see if I drop it in and then move it slightly, if it will stay. If it's very wet, it may just like to the side. So it may not work, but maybe it will. And then you have a good first layer. So if you want to come back and add more, it's a little easier. Then there's a few details on top that we still need to look at very fast. Darker helps somewhat. I kind of stay in the same idea, same color scheme. So I don't really want to change a lot. So here I just need to zoom in again so I can see what's happening over here. And I want to come with my orangey blue again. And I just want to go in here. Now I'm just going to paint the whole thing so it feels the same. You can always layer. You can layer so many times. You can decide to stay in your line or you can just kind of blend it a little bit. So you can decide if you want to let it blend out. I'm going to do more of the darker, so a little orange blue, but more of the darker of that brownish color, kind of like we've been using. And I'm going to do here. Now, it needs to be a little different versus the tram. So try not to make it exactly the same color. So maybe one will have more orange and one will have less. And then tap, tap, tap your brush so it's a little uneven. Maybe it's wet, so it's just going to dry the same color. More paint, less water is going to make the color much darker. So especially under the roof, it's kind of nice. And then make this full. I mean, it's kind of green, but you don't have to stay with the, you don't have to stay with that. Somewhat detail, somewhat not. Smoosh it out. And if you feel this line you made is too dark, you can always just go side to side with your paintbrush and see if you can blend it a little bit. You can also just paint with this color over it. It's going to look a little different when we add our the darker color. Okay, get more orange in your blue. And then let's do some of these wood panels. So I'm just going to do here. Oh, I didn't even trace it here. It's okay. At the bottom. Here, at the bottom. Here, at the bottom. Like a... So for me, I like it when my colors are so I call it like dirty, like nudie. I like it when it looks like this. You can kind of paint a bit over, so tap, tap, tap your brush and kind of let it blend. It doesn't have to be so perfect. Let's go to our person. Give him some clothing. So I'm just kind of staying the same-ish color scheme. So I'm giving him some orange. And I'm adding blue to that orange. And giving him, but I use less water, so my color is so much more stronger, so you can actually see him. I am doing the same color. I just mixed a whole blob of orange where I didn't want it. I'm going to do the same darker color for my trash can. Wait, I need to switch to a smaller brush. So go smaller, but be careful not to go too detail, right? So even if you go smaller, and it's so funny that the trash can lines up with this pole. So there's one here touching the tram. Here's one here. You. So I just don't paint all the way to the top. I just do a little up and down, up and down. And he will hold a yellowish, same as my tram almost. His sweater is yellowish. Yeah. And his hair is going to be black. Looks like he has a ponytail. Okay. Like that. I'm going to do the same. It's yellow just for in here. And I'm just touching it. I'm getting some of the orange and blue, and I'm making a little smiley face in here in this light. And in the lights here in the middle. And here in this corner, I'm going to do a little swishy with my black or my paint gray. I'm just going to, let it blend. And then I'm going to take the paint gray and maybe I'm going to just add tiny bit of blue to it. And I'm going to paint kind of up and down in my windows. And you want to kind of have different shades. So you want to paint a little bit, leave it open, paint a little bit, and then paint here and leave like a space here open. There's like very dark here. You can maybe give a little swish there and a little swish there. You can soften it a bit. And then come to this side. I keep on looking at my reference photo to just more or less see. I didn't even trace these windows. So I kind of like to just look at my reference photo just so I can gauge more or less, if I'm in the right track. When it's dry, it's much easier to come back and add more color. I just tried and it's still wet, so I'm just going to do all of these. So remember, everywhere we went with the pen to do like the hatching. You want to make it a little bit. So a smaller brush is a little bit more helpful just because the spaces are small. Oh my gosh, my lines are so skewed. Look like my windows is going inside. It's okay. It's okay. It's going to be great. Let's go to this window. So again, I'm just going to do, so you don't want to do so much detail. You can either paint over it or you can just do little blocks. Less is better. Less detail. So tap, tap, tap in those windows. Blend some of it out. The space is so small that you have to be careful. You don't have to overmix it. This window doesn't look so great. I'm gonna do a little swish in here. I'm gonna take it down here. I'm gonna blend it a bit out. So you want to see darker, a little bit lighter, a little darker, a little lighter. And this is how you always want to make sure that you see, that you can see there's different things happening, is when there's contrast. So if the one is touching the other one and it's making, the one is dark, the one is light, or it goes from dark to light, that's how you can make sure that there's contrast. And that's how you can make sure that people can actually see what is happening. I'm going to make a little line here. Bring my brush, suck it up, smoosh it a little bit so it kind of flows. Again, not too much detail. It's just like a little swish and a little soft. Swish. And we already had the heavier pen also. So we don't even have to work so hard. Do like a little smiley face here. Make sure we touch the roof. You have a crisp line. So those are small details that can help to have like a few clean lines and then come back and then mess it up. And then I'm gonna do the same. We wanna go dark and then you wanna smush it out. Maybe a little here. And then always check how it dries, because it always dries a little lighter, a little wonkier. So just check to see how it dries. I'm gonna do, so I like what I do. Oh, let's do this little window. Let's do the side mirror. This one does not even have one. I guess you need one. I don't really know how trams work. I have some side mirror. Oh, see how cool this looks. I love it. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. I am doing some orange and I'm giving this roof over here a little orange line. And there's actually a few that you can do. So you can do this top one. And go here. So you can go and do a few orangey roofs. This one. I do this one. And I want to do this one. And just add more blue. And kind of add a nice line. So even though it's very blending and very soft and all the things, it is always nice to have a few dark lines, just like it just helps. Do a little swishy to just show here. And then we want to do the sidewalk. I am adding a bit more water to this orangey color. I'm even gonna do a tiny bit of yellow. Oh yes, looking pretty. Now be careful if you add too much blue, it will turn green. So you have to be careful. And I'm gonna do here, oopsies. That's a lot of water. And I'm going to do here. I'm not going to leave it like this though, because it's really close to my base color. But kind of looks cool. I'm gonna see, now you were supposed to do your bigger brush so you don't spend so much time painting. Uneven again is so much nicer. And then go into your paint gray. Be careful. Do not make it green. And then because it's still wet, especially here, see if you can drop it in, touching the guy, touching everything, touching the trash can, touching everything, so it can kind of blend out. In your brush, make sure you suck it up, make sure you blend it out and make it a little softer. It doesn't have a big shadow. It's basically just like a little bit of a line, but we can do what we want. So we want to make it a bit bigger, a bit more standing out. Okay, so like soft, good. Uneven lines, good. You don't have to make sure that you don't need to blend everything out. I am going to do a bit of this gray on top, just like it to make it, especially touching my tram, so it's not the same. I'm going to take my paint gray and just go be tap, 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 and a few little groups, kind of like that. Now I just want paint gray or even black. I don't want to have any green or orange or anything on it. And I want to do the tram. And underneath the tram. So see that initial shadow we kind of sort of traced. You may not even fully see whatever this is. I'm just gonna go over it. And the shadow continue on top of your sidewalk. Now, if your sidewalk is still wet, then don't paint there. Mine is dry. Very important to make sure there's no white spaces here, especially at the bottoms where it's touching, because that will just look weird. I'm gonna make a line like this and underneath here and here. So mine is drying pretty fast. If yours is wet, don't do this step. And I'm also going to do the line on top of that pencil line, not all the way, but on top. And then that line is very skinny, so I'm going to touch and paint on top of those two lines. When it's dry and it dries really light, maybe do your shadow again. But only when it's dry. If it's wet, it's not going to be easy to paint. And I do like a little swishy over that one because it can, you know, it's kind of shiny. You can kind of sort of see it here. Oh, never my phone. You will see it when you have the photo. So you will see some of your pencil line or pen lines and some kind of not, and you see these lines, and then I'm not going to worry about this one. This is just going to be my little line. It's supposed to be lighter, so I guess I can do this. Oh, what did I do with my pen? Yes, I can do this. It was now a very beautiful bubble. I like the way that it is so uneven and all these marks. And basically come back, add a few lines more if you want to. You don't have to blend in anything so much. You can take a liner or you can take your pen and just come back and add a few darker lines. Maybe here again. And you don't even have to blend it in. Honestly, no blending really. Just like kind of gonna let it go wild. Do down here. Wow. And then of course, like with everything, you need to know when to stop. None of us know. So good. Gonna make that white a little. It's not white, it is painted, but it's just very bright. I'm just gonna kind of blend it in. And this, oh, this before I say, and this is it. It's not. There's like a little dark thing here. I'm also gonna make my line a little darker and my side sidewalk curve. And now I think it is it. Like, let's zoom out and check. I am going to make, so what you want to look for is make sure all your dark areas are dark enough. So here I'm going to make darker. Here I'm going to make darker, maybe not that dark. Let me do a few and then I'm going to blend it out and we'll see what it looks like. So I'm going to add that, clean my brush, suck it up. Especially touching, your lines can be a little more, you can control and make it a bit more straight. But don't lose the reflections. So even as you do this, you don't want to lose your reflections. Wait, I'm going to switch to a baby brush. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to see, instead of making my windows go like this, I'm going to see. So I'm going to, on my right-hand side, I'm going to make a straight line coming down. To see if I can. Yes. Okay. Straight lines coming down is helpful. And then just make a clean that line a little bit up. Somewhat better. I'm just gonna leave it like that. Love it. Okay, and there's my whatever tram somewhere. Gonna give, this is what I mean. I'm like, I feel done, and then I look at the screen, and then I'm like, am I? I'm not. Am I done? And these windows, because it needs to match all the windows. But leave the reflection, so don't just paint over everything. Leave some of it. Now I wonder if I should do a very darker line here, because you know how it blended over, and now I'm like wondering, should I? So now I'm doing it. Okay, I'm almost done. Check your pores, make sure they're really dark, especially to the bottoms. They can go a little lighter at the top. And this is it. I love it. All done.